So I'm sitting up here chilling on this Saturday, and just doing my research, checking through the what's going on, current events of the day, watching this draft, and everything going on with that situation. Y'all know, y'all been paying attention to the draft. Y'all see what happened. Shador finally did get drafted, Cleveland Browns, fifth round. But I get a notification, and when I'm searching, I see that there are some artifacts being removed from the National Museum of African American History and Culture, also known as the Black Smithsonian, up there in Washington, D.C. So I'm like, if you've been following the story, you know that President Trump has officially declared his war, or the next steps at least, of his war with Black history and the Smithsonian. So, he came out with this thing talking about his goal is to restore truth and sanity to American history in his efforts to remove improper, divisive, or anti-American ideology. So he decides that he's going to turn his sights on a couple of museums, but one of them being the African American History Museum. And again, why I say that this is so important is because we people are trying to distort, they are trying to rewrite, and they are trying to whitewash the history for Black Americans. And as we all know, it is important for us to make sure that we maintain and retain the themes and the true story of African American history. And so, one of the things that I'll say too is that it's incumbent on us as Americans to make sure that we are protecting and preserving the information that tells the whole entire story, unadulterated, of the accomplishments, of the tragedies, the triumphs of African Americans. Mind you, this is happening. Like I said, y'all see me watching on different cameras. That's because I'm live on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. I got all the platforms going for this one. And so it's important because when we look at the timeline for the African American History Museum up there in DC, we are just now coming up on 10 years. Remember, it opened in 2016 up under President Obama as he was on his way out and as Trump was coming in for his first term. So we've had this gem, this jewel, for less than 10 years. And it's a beautiful location. It's something that has been in the works for decades to be able to have a place in the heart of, in the capital of our country, the heart of our country, up there in DC, very historic landmark, to be able to capture and to tell the story of the centuries of years of Africans and African Americans and Africans of the diaspora and their contribution to America. And it is being picked apart piece by piece by this current presidential administration. And this is something that we have to make sure that we protect because this is the true story with the timelines and the artifacts, the remnants of the struggles and the success of us. And this is the thing that we need to be laying down our bodies to preserve and protect at this time because it is important because people can go there and get the proper context of what happened in America. And because some things are uncomfortable for certain individuals, they want to then take these things out so that they can make sure to preserve and protect what they feel like is the important thing with the history of America. Despite they have no cares, no bearings on how those of us feel about how we are represented in this country. I mean, when you talk about, I can remember when um, Michelle Obama was talking about how there was those who were enslaved who built the White House, and now to be able to be in the White House and talk about that storyline. And and you know just what a representation that is to African Americans in this country, what a representation that is to young boys and girls in this country, to be able to have this full circle moment. And now you have somebody who wants to come in and erase that. And I always like to say, like, I like to put names to these things. You know, when we talk about enslaved people built the White House, remember it was James Holman who won the architectural design and contest to be able to construct the White House and as what we know today. And when he went there with those who were enslaved. I'm talking about Ben, Daniel, Peter, Gordon, Tom, Harry, and then you even hear about Philip Reed, and Philip Reed helped to cast the Statue of Freedom on top of the U.S. Capitol, where a multitude of other individuals also helped to build other historical foundational government structures in this nation, but particularly in Washington D.C. And that's why I say I like to give those names to individuals to really pull in their identity, to really pull in their humanity, of the efforts to show the contribution of people to this world power, this so-called shining light on top of the hill for what the world should look towards when we talk about a power, a country and a nation that is supposed to idealistically represent um, aspirational, economic, foundational um, representation of what other countries, other communities should look like, though we fall short time and time again. The reason it's hard for me to muster up some of the words is because just like we say throughout history, it has been Black Americans that have been at the pivotal points of making America stand up to the ideals in which she claims to represent within that U.S. Constitution. And it has not existed because of the turning or warming of hearts, of cold hearts, who then see this moral gauge and moral compass and they want to calibrate it to now go in the direction of the North Star of being right, moral, and just to those in who she has chosen to um, to treat ill, to degrade, to separate, to subjugate, um, in this nation for the hundreds of years that we've been here. So it's been those Black Americans that have always been the pressure point, been a thorn in the side of those who want to be unjust to do the just thing. And the African American History Museum represented one of those places where you can go to explore as you go from the bottom level to the top, to explore all throughout history the multitude of organizations and individuals whose names you may not always find in all of the history books, like our Booker T. Washingtons, and our Martin Luther Kings, of course. You may not be able to find the stories of other names outside of those individuals that have been represented, have been such pivotal contributors to that. And so when you have a people and you have administration that is working to only highlight and represent what they find comfortable, then we have a problem in America because the democracy is is strengthened through disagreement. A democracy is bolstered through its ability to share the stories of everybody, um, in this fabric that we call the United States of America. And so the sirens have to go off, which is why I feel like I'm on all platforms right now. The sirens must go off to talk about what is happening right now with the dismantling of the African American History Museum in less than a decade. Hasn't even made, it was about to make its decade in September of 2026 as far as existing. And we all have a point, but of course, African Americans have a duty, an obligation to speak out when we see what is happening in this country. I mean, even let me go ahead and share my screen because I just see the great hypocrisy and contradiction in what President Trump is doing. And as you see my screen, for those who are on TikTok, I am on YouTube as well, Facebook, Instagram, um, where you could just go over to that page, House of Aten on YouTube, and catch this stream so you can see what we're streaming right now. But I appreciate y'all for joining on TikTok at this moment as we talk about what's happening with the African American History Museum. But Trump literally got a 2017. I'm deeply proud that we now have a museum that honors the millions of African American men and women who built our national heritage, especially when it comes to faith, culture, and the unbreakable American spirit. Trump said following a tour that included Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina and then Housing and Urban Development Secretary Ben Carson, both of whom are black. Trump says, I know President Obama was here for the museum's opening last fall. Trump continued, I'm honored to be the second sitting president to visit this great museum. So, how do you say this? Give all of these accolades to the African American History Museum, talk about the importance of it, and even insert yourself as to being honored to be the second sitting president of this museum, then in your next term, you begin to try to dismantle it after you tried policy after policy to eradicate. And then you have your minions running around these different red states also trying to intercept and separate the facts from out of the history books of African Americans' history. I mean, the Department of Defense temporarily removed training videos representing the recognizing the Tuskegee Airmen, an online biography of Jackie Robinson. We saw them pull down Harriet Tubman from off of the National Park Services website as well, only to restore it. And then in February, Trump fires Air Force General C.Q. Brown Jr., champion of racial diversity in the military, as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Brown, in the wake of Floyd's killing, spoken publicly about his experiences as a black man and was only the second general to serve as chairman. Then the administration fired diversity officers across government, curtailed some agencies' celebrations of Black History Month. I'm talking about going so far in the Department of the Navy on the date of the Black History Museum event, or the Black History Month event, cancels it. Cancels it during the month of February. And mind you, see, this is all important too because we get to get context and we get to understand the true sources of how things came about when you have places to go that represent African American history, because you still have people in this day and time who believe that Black History Month was given to us by outsiders because it's the shortest month in the year. Not understanding that its origins come because father figures of Black history, like Dr. Carter G. Woodson, decided to pick Black History Month because it started off as Black History Week to commemorate the birthdays of both the Honorable Frederick Douglass and President Abraham Lincoln, whose birthdays was in the week, February 12th, February 14th, respectively. And then it ends up being broadened to Black History Month in the 1970s. See, we have people who don't understand those little contextual things. And now you have a place where you can go and you can understand the story of the Black Panther Party that originally started in Alabama, that was literally a separate political party that black people could join and be a part of because they felt like the Democratic Party and the Republican Party at the time did not represent their interests, kind of like we're seeing right now in 2025. So they started a Black a black political party called the Black Panther Party. And then Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale were so inspired by the Black Panther as being the symbol of the people, and then what they were doing down there in Lowndes County, Alabama. So then they started the the Black Panther Party for Self Defense in Oakland, California, as a build off of that other Black Panther Party. So a lot of our people don't even know about the actual political party called the Black Panther Party. And so, you get um, these reinforcements to show how African Americans have been at the point and have been at the foundation of providing our own freedom and empowering ourselves to put ourselves in a better situation in this country. Just like you did with the sit-ins. And then you see how young people, Children's Crusade, Birmingham, 1963, where about 2,000 youth between the ages of 8 to 18 go out and march in the streets to secure their own freedom in a better place of society in America. See, they don't tell this story to our elementary, middle, and high school kids as well, where our youth may not understand exactly what can we do to improve our situation, but then to understand that it's only been the youth, well, not only, but largely been the youth who have been at the center of improving our situation as African Americans in this country. So you get the Children's Crusade, then you get the sacrifice of the young girls in the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. 4 little girls, 3 of them are ages of 14, one of them is 11. And we go on and on. You talk, when I get back to the sit-ins, you talk about the 4 at NCAT, North Carolina A&T University, who then inspired thousands throughout hundreds of cities across this nation to demand that we have the ability to go where it is that we want to go and to shop where it is we want to shop and not have our lives threatened in this country to be able to move about. And then for us to also understand the context of that, that came down to economics. It didn't come down to the moral suasion changing of the heart. It came down to the fact of how can we, sure, let's allow them to come eat because they'll spend more of their dollars with us, which means that it pulls dollars from out of their economy. It pulls dollars from out of their restaurants and enhances us since they want to come shop and dine with us, and it begins to help grow our businesses while it helps to dismantle and pull away from other businesses, especially businesses in the African American community. And so when you get to study African American history and you get to see these stories and you get to learn more about the humanity of figures like Muhammad Ali beyond the boxing, this is represented in museum. I had a chance to go to the Muhammad Ali Museum in Louisville, Kentucky, and learned way more about the work he did, the worldwide work he did. And see, these are just the examples of why we cannot sit by idly and allow people to attack our structures and our places that's represented for us, that were created by us, invested by us, to make sure that our story is represented correctly. The preservation of our HBCUs, the preservation of other museums throughout this country, preservations of neighborhoods, the creation, not only just the preservation, but there needs to be the creation of other institutions that represent our interests, that tell our stories. There's not enough. So while people are trying to pick apart the ones that we have, we also have to be building simultaneously. But the answer, the tolerance can never be to sit by idly and allow these things to happen. All the alarms should be going off. All the investments, organizations like the Black History Project, which I have the privilege of being a part of, because when they decided to dismantle Black history and the story of the Black experience in our K through 8 or K through high school institutions, all up under a trope and a veil to talk about their teaching critical race theory when no, they weren't. They're just teaching and including the story of African Americans all throughout history, because since the founding of this nation all the way into present day, the only thing we hear about African Americans is that they were enslaved, they were part of segregation and Jim Crow. And Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and Jackie Robinson were pretty much the only pioneering figures that did something, but to not include the true story of Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam, to not include the true story of the Black Panther Party. The Black History Project organization was created, bolstered, and asked for volunteers or people to come in and teach throughout our community centers within the state of Florida, but then to also host Zooms that was teaching people as far as Philadelphia, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, to talk about the full story and to provide a place and space where whether you're a young kid or whether you're an adult can come and find out and use the Black History Project as a resource to learn about your history as they try to further veil it um, behind this wall of censorship. So when I got this information today, you did damn right. That's the thing that struck. And sometimes, you know what? My mom is always good for saying this. Sometimes things will push you, and when you get tired, when you get sick and tired of being tired, you will do something, you will move, something will push you to get out there and change the situation and circumstances in which you find yourself. And I guess this was it. I guess going and trying to pull out these artifacts that represent shows the real Bible that was given to the enslaved, that shows the other remnants of the conditions in which we found ourselves subjugated to through European and Spain's imperial powers, to further create this gap and to widen the oceans of disconnection between African Americans in the United States and Africans on the continent, and to introduce these tropes, stereotypes, and to put these messaging out there like our good, horrible individual named J. Edgar Hoover did during his time when he was head of the FBI. You see, our history is interwoven, and see, and this is another thing too of our immigrant brothers and sisters fail to not understand, no fault of their own. Sure, it's not included in the history books, of course, but it was Black Americans who helped to fight for their ability to come to this nation in 1968 when we rewrote and asked for a new policy for the quotas that was put in place in this country, to only allow a certain group of people from certain countries, European countries, by the way, Western European countries, not even Eastern European countries, to be able to come to America. It was Black Americans who unselfishly said that the way that they treat our brothers and sisters from different countries that have different ethnic backgrounds, whether Hispanics, Asians, Indian, not the misnomer Native Americans, the indigenous people that was here. I'm talking about our brothers and sisters from India having the ability to come over here, get an education, use the resources in the United States of America. It was the policies that was put forward, the Hart-Celler Act that was put forward during the civil rights struggle to advocate for those of you who come over here and wipe your feet on the backs of our work and want to disrespect us in our neighborhoods as to where we help to contribute for you to be able to come to America. But then to only be turned around, rejected, and slapped in the face as if it wasn't our efforts that are the reason that you're here and you're able to thrive, survive, and exist in this country. See, that's the information that's not put in our history books so that everybody gets a full understanding, contextual understanding, and the full context and holistic perspective of what African Americans have contributed in this country, not just for ourselves, but for other people as well. See, but we all need some place to go learn. We all need some place to get the truth, because there are those individuals who are trying to distort the truth of the history of people in this nation. And what they want to do is they want to dismantle it. They want to rebrand it. They want to take out the I's, the thes, the beatings, the lynchings, and they want to replace it with things like Governor DeSantis, who had the nerve to say that black people benefited from slavery because it taught them useful skills. Or how they want to rewrite in the Texas history books to say it wasn't slavery, it was black people, they were black immigrants back then in 1619 all the way up until 1808, when they no longer allowed for African Americans to be shipped from one country to the other. So then they existed in a hyper breeding of plantation, from plantation to plantation, to use black men to go around plantation to plantation to impregnate black women so that they could increase the amount of slaves that they would have, since America cut off the transportation of black people from Africa over until the United States of America. And mind you, when they did that, they gave them 20 years to make the adjustments. For 20 years, they were still able to be shipped. So, if you don't know, now you know about the Hart-Celler Act of 1965, also known as the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, at a pivotal point during the civil rights movement in this country. Landmark piece of legislation signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson fundamentally altered the U.S. immigration policy by abolishing the discriminatory national origins quota system that had been in place since the 1920s. This act replaced the quota system with a preference system that prioritized family reunification and skills, leading to a significant increase in immigration from Latin America, Asia, and other parts of the world. This act is seen as a significant step in the broader civil rights movement, as it eliminated discrimination in immigration based on national origin. If you don't know, now you know. See, this is what they want to be able to do. They want everybody to just sit in a pool of ignorance, to not really understand. Because why? Because it allows for more opportunities for us to separate ourselves from each other, instead of banding together as people against ignorance, against discrimination, against oppression. This is why they don't want people to have the ability to go to museums and to study the history, or when they go to museums, they want them to be able to hide the proper information that's there, that will give people understanding and that will give people opportunities for reconciliation. So I encourage all those under the sound of my voice to be willing to stand up and to say right, to speak against wrongs, to not be indifferent to what happens to one community, because it's going to affect all of us, because they're just going to go down the line from one group of people to another, and they're going to censor. This is censorship. When censorship arises, we have to fight back and speak out against it. I'm telling you, they can't stop us. It's here. Black History book, all this information, it's here. Lies. My teacher told me everything your American history textbook got wrong. See, if you're going to go into teaching history, you got to read these books. And if you want to know who you are and you want to preserve our cultural and ethnic identity, you got to crack open these books. You can't just let school do the work, because it's not, and it's not enough time. 100 amazing facts about the Negro. See, before you disagree, before you want to push back, you got to educate yourself first. This is not to romanticize history. This is not to romanticize the positions in which we find ourselves as African Americans, but this is to at least understand that 400 souls. Let's go. Conversations in Black. All of these different individuals, contributors, all these different people contributed to this book, writing about all types of different topics. Nile Valley contributions to civilization. Why are we still arguing, going back and forth with the origins of Africans in Egypt? They're trying to take Egypt literally, historically. They're trying to take Egypt out of Africa. And they've been trying to do this for decades, so this is not nothing new. I want to make sure I get this right, because you had, at one point in time, you had two African authors, just two, went against about 18 to 20 Arabic and European so-called historians that wanted to talk about and wanted to purport that Africa, especially Egypt, wasn't populated by black Africans. The ancient Egyptians ain't black. We still arguing. People are trying to put this forward today, like who was it? Zahi Hawass. Still trying to put that as much artifacts and digging that they have done. We still arguing against that to try to act like melanated individuals like myself does not have any connection with ancient Egypt. And it's not to romanticize ancient Egypt, but why are we arguing against this? So here we go. Remember, that's why I said this is why you got to read. That's why you got to pick up the books. See, these are the things that they don't want you to know, though. Long-standing debate over the ethnicity of ancient Egyptians came to a head in the early 1970s. We already had this answer since the 1970s. Almost 50 years. Hell, beyond 50 years. Beyond 50 years. So, came to a head in the early 1970s when the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, known as UNESCO, commissioned an 8-volume history of Africa. The role of ancient Egypt in this history became a sticking point, and in January 1974, UNESCO hosted a symposium in Cairo to consider the peopling of ancient Egypt. 18 European and Arab scholars claimed that the ancient Egyptians were Caucasians. Let me say this again. And this is back in 1970, so then they had a symposium in Cairo in 1974. 18 European and Arab scholars claimed that the ancient Egyptians were Caucasians. Two African professors, Sheikh Anta Diop and Theophile Obenga, argued that ancient Egypt was peopled from its Neolithic infancy to the end of the native dynasties by black Africans. Here we go, the final report. The final report noted a lack of balance in the discussions, and in support of the African historians stated, not all participants prepared communications comparable with the painstakingly research contributions of Professors Sheikh Anta Diop and Theophile Obenga. 18-2, and they wiped the floor with them on the peopling of ancient Egypt. And still today in 2025, you got people talking about Africans, black Africans were not in ancient Egypt and did not contribute to the pyramids, the misnomer Sphinx, which is really the Hurt-em-Akhet, and all the other temples and magnificence of mathematics and science, and that we had nothing to do with it. But already UNESCO proved that wrong, and it was an 8-volume book that was already put out talking about the history of Africa that proved the point as well. So this is why you have to be outraged and why you just cannot sit back and believe in your mind and believe in your heart that African American history is important and what they are trying to do to the African American History Museum is irrelevant. Because it is. And this is also why we have to be outraged and we have to figure out other avenues. Because, see, the fight, it just can't be one direct fight. As we're fighting, we have to be building. So as we outrage, we have to go someplace, and there has to be an environment, an arena that's produced so that people have a way to escape and to go learn. That's the way you fight the war. That's the way it has to go. That's the way you have to do this, have to build this. So I've contributed. It's going, I'm contributing. It's going to happen. This information is going to get out there. The truth is going to get out there. As the Honorable Dr. John Henry Clark said, history is a clock that people use to tell their political and cultural time of day. It is a compass they use to find themselves on the map of human geography. It tells them where they have been, what they have been, and where they are and what they must be. That is the importance of history. That is the significance of history. Our self esteem, our identity is rooted in knowing who we are. And when people distort the truth about who you are and what your contributions are, if you don't do the research to unlearn, to rewire this information and put it together the right way, then you are always going to have a psychological complex, an inferiority complex of who you are, or you're going to spend your time trying to be somebody in something that you ain't. And so I have to call on the great thinkers like Dr. Naeem Akbar, who wanted to deal with the psychology of African Americans and to incorporate history and the lack thereof and the importance of knowing the true historical concepts, because it goes beyond just being able to name dates, but it talks about ideology. Why is it that when we talk about philosophy, we don't bring up names like Marcus Mosiah Garvey? Who are our African philosophers? W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, E. Franklin Frazier. Who are our African philosophers that have dealt with this? Our literary thinkers, our artistic thinkers. See, again, the only time you typically find this information, at least on a school level, is when you take an African American history course. Or you take, which is typically, it is an elective, is not a core course. So if you aren't typing in on TikTok or YouTube throughout your day, or going to Facebook or trying to figure out where these conferences are that talk about the African American experience, or taking these trips to places like the African American Museum in Washington, D.C., you're not going to find this. And then I'll also ask too, why is it so important? Again, why can't y'all just let black people live? Why is it so important for you to take your crusty hands and try to stick it into black folks' business to try to remove information that talks about their history if there isn't some type of purpose or scheme to keep us away from knowing who we are, how powerful we are, and how much we can be? That's the thing. I don't really pay attention. The red flags don't go off, and things that I'm not really paying attention to. It's always when they decide to do something and to meddle in something. I'm like, hold on, wait. Why are they paying attention to that over there? Hmm. Shador gets drafted. Takes a couple days to get drafted. Going through the adversities of trying to make it into the league. And that's been a rant and rave and talk all around social media. But then see what happens is I'm just doing a little digging because I'm like, well, what's the update on this whole situation with the African American Museum? Because mine has been going on for like a month now. What's the update with that? Type it in, search in Google. Oh, while we so busy talking about Shadur's situation, I talked about Shadur's situation too. So I'm a both and. I'm not an either or type of person. So you come talking to me about it, I'm gonna be like Sinners, party, like the movie Sinners, party, but also get your lesson. See, I'm the no excuse type of person because I ain't gonna tell you necessarily to put down one and not pick up the other. I'm gonna tell you they both need to coexist. One needs to exist more than the other. You know what I'm saying? When we talk about education, however, I'm just not gonna tell you to completely put it down because that's not realistic. And if anything, that's not gonna get you to come in where I need you to be at. So we gotta give people the medicine that they can digest. So I'm sitting up there and I'm like, well, what's going on with the Black History Museum? I type it in Google, and oh crap! In the midst of us dealing with this Shadur charade, they started removing artifacts from out the Black History Museum. Boy, I tell you, they gonna try it every time. They gonna try to distract you with something over here while they doing something over there. But no, 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 you ain't you're not getting that over on me, sir. No, 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 no. Cause I'm too about this business. I'm gonna stay on top of it and figure out what's going on. So while Shadur's trying to get drafted, they've been sitting over there removing things and sending stuff back to folks out of the Black History Museum. Like, nah, y'all can keep that. And they sitting up there rewriting and reworking what our children, with other people from around the world will be exposed to when it comes to the black experience, all because they're trying to whitewash it and censor it. Well, damn it, you've been caught red-handed. You've been caught red-handed. You've been exposed, and we putting this out so everybody knows what's going on, so everybody can see what's happening. Let's go to it. Let's look at it. Let's look at it. See, y'all done found a way to wake. Y'all done woke me up. Usually I be chilling. I put some stuff out there, but y'all done woke me up. Here we go. Smithsonian begins removing exhibits, artifacts from African American History Museum Friday, April 25th at 10:32 p.m. Now I know what most of us was doing Friday, April 25th. If you in the sports world, we was looking at that damn draft like, dang, Shadur ain't finna go yet. Artifacts and exhibits are being removed from the National Museum of African American History and Culture. It comes a month. I told you this has been going on for a month. This ain't no brand new information. They just making steps and strides into what's going on. And don't forget, if you're watching me on TikTok, remember you can see the share screen presentation on House of Aten on YouTube. Please go over there, like, comment, subscribe, or you can go to my own personal Facebook page where we showing this as well. And what else? I'm on, I think, Instagram as well, House of Aten. But for sure, go on that YouTube page. So yeah, it comes a month after President Trump's executive order to remove what he calls improper ideology from Smithsonian museums. Of course, tourists travel from all across the country to see the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Black history is also American history. Yeah, 100%. Tanika Williams says, I wanted to make sure that I got to go through the exhibit and see the things that my parents and other people sacrificed. But some of the objects in the museum are being removed. I'm concerned about what might not be here in a few months. The only way that they get away with this is if we stay silent, if we don't say anything. That's the only way that they get away with this. Also, we have to substitute places that people can go, or at least provide another place where we can talk about these and have these conversations so that we can make sure that we preserve and be the outlet for where people can go to continue to learn about history. Also, if you didn't know, they put the executive director Kevin Young on an indefinite leave. That happened way back as well too. They put him on leave before they even put out the executive order known as Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History. But still to this day, I haven't found it. If y'all found it, y'all can put it in the comment section, put it in the chat. But I haven't even found out why they put him on leave. Now, most people think that it has something to do with this whole executive order that was coming down, but they've been quiet about it. And so we need to ask and need to know why the brother was put on leave in the first place. You know, like we need to do some digging and require that some things be answered, and we need to know what approach, what methodology are they using to remove things from out of the African American History Museum? Who's given the green light to be able to do that? And then what are they trying to replace it with? There's so many questions that we need to dig into and deal with and figuring out what's going on. And I'm going to say it right now. I won't be surprised if this video is shadow banned. I won't be surprised if this video is not available for people to see and it gets censored. There's been no profanity in here. There's been no ad hominems in here. It's just been straight history, facts, and showed you the sources of the information from where you can get it. No reason for this video not to do numbers and not to go out far and wide about what's going on with this dismantling of the African American History Museum. But I tell you what, you're going to have another place where you can go and you can still get this history, still get this knowledge, still get this information. So I need everybody to subscribe. I need everybody to go and follow, like, and you see it down there in the description if you follow me on the YouTube at the Black History Project Inc. Because we got some phenomenal teachers, some phenomenal staff over there who are doing the phenomenal work to make sure that this information is out there, that this information gets put in the community as it needs to be, and so people can have a place to go and have a conversation that we can engage and indulge in as we do our best to protect our history. And so this can't be the only place, or we can't be the only people that's really doing this. We got to make sure that others, I'm just checking the YouTube, make sure that it's going good, that others know about this information and that others are aware of what's happening, because a lot of the biggest issue, just like when it comes to knowledge of self and who we are, is that a lot of people just aren't even aware that this is even happening. A lot of us aren't even aware of what are the different types of approaches that they're trying to take to dismantle our history. What exactly are they doing to keep from the rest of us? You know, because the goal is to keep us at odds so that we don't know, and that they're able to put out misinformation about each other. Same thing with this whole immigration situation. And this immigration situation just doesn't only impact Hispanics. This is going to impact people all across across the board. We got Haitian immigrants, Jamaican immigrants, Nigerian immigrants, Ghanaian immigrants that's going to be impacted by this. And don't forget, Trump said that he wants to find a way to deport violent criminals from out of our prisons. Those who are American citizens that committed violent crimes, and wants to figure a way to deport them to other countries like El Salvador. Now, here's the thing about this, because then some people be like, so what, you think violent criminals should be able to stay in this country? I'm not even focused on that part of it. Remember when President Reagan did the war on drugs and they were supposed to go after big cartels and big kingpins? And then they ended up going after small time offenders, people with roaches or a little bit of residue, and they got caught up in the system as well. I'm only looking at history to say, I think this goes way beyond the so-called violent criminals of who's going to get deported if you are in the prison system. And if he gets his way, it's going to be some small-time offenders, habitual offenders for non-violent crimes who are going to find themselves being deported as well. And most importantly, American citizens. So we better think long and hard and pay attention as to where they tend to want to focus on one area, but some kind of way the net gets cast far and wide. So there's a lot of moving parts to all of this, as to at least where we need to have awareness, we need to be able to ask questions, have open dialogue conversations, and where, they always talk about we're one of the most transparent administrations to exist in the history of all presidents. Nobody else does it better than we do. Okay, transparency. Answer these damn questions. Which one of these objects is used in hoops? I don't even confirm. I guess I've been on a live on TikTok too long. Yo, this is my second time I think going live on TikTok. Finally got the ability to go live on TikTok on mobile, so shout out to you. Make sure you definitely go to the TikTok House of Aten. If you're on the YouTube, if you're on the Facebook, if you're on the Instagram, make sure you also subscribe to the TikTok because we got other videos over there as well that y'all should definitely check out. But this what it is, man. I hope, what I'm saying, the dismantling African American history. I hope y'all been paying attention. Because they going through and taking out the artifacts. It's official now on African American History Museum. I hope you had a chance to tour. It's a beautiful museum, some great history in there. Of course, it wasn't the end all be all, but it definitely is a gem in this country. We need to do everything we can to fight to protect it, to preserve it, and not let them go in there and do what it is that they're trying to do. So, this has been AK with House of Aten. Also, one of the teachers at the Black History Project. Make sure you go like, subscribe, go follow the page. We're going to have more information. Stay up to date on this information. Do your research. Carter G. Woodson said there are two types of education: the one that you get in the schools and the one that you get to yourself, with the latter being the most important. So we have to educate ourselves because, as we can see, we're going back in history. Mind you, nothing new under the sun. We done been through this before. So if you do the research, Miseducation of the Negro, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and you read these books, Powernomics by Dr. Claude Anderson, a bunch of resources. Covenant with Black America, Tavis Smiley. And this is the 20 years later edition. This is a special edition. They can't get over on us when we know what it is that we need to do. We know our history, we understand. You know what I'm saying? So, peace.